Hello fellow reloaders. Today I'm going to add a Weigand scope base onto my Ruger GP100. So the first thing that we want to do is that we will take off the rear sight, and then I will take off the front sight. In order to take off the front sight, there is a plunger pin that you have to push in, and then you will lift up the front sight in this fashion. As I'm getting to the rear sight, I'm unscrewing the rear sight screw, and then I need to push this pin out to get this to completely come off. So when you're taking this pin out, you want to push the pin to the right, and I'm just gently wanting to tap it so I don't lose that pin. There's the pin, and I like to keep it in a separate tray, and then I'll put all my parts back into the bag. I'm unscrewing the rear sight screw. And be careful because there's little springs on the bottom of this sight, as you can see right there. And as you see, I've already gotten the front sight taken off. So how you would want to take this off is once you push the plunger pin forward, you just lift up this type of motion. And it'll come straight out. Okay, now to install the front base. For the Weigand scope base to be secured onto the revolver. So how we're going to do that is we just insert just like that, and we're going to do the opposite of how we took out the front base plate. I heard it snap into place, and we're now good to go. Give it a nice good fit. Pretty simple. I put blue Loctite on my screws, and I've already got them pretty much set in. So I've got this set to 15 inch-pounds, and you just want to turn till you hear it click. Now we're going to add the scope rings onto the base. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting them on somewhat a little finger tight. So what I want to do is, once I get them on finger tight, you can see how they move forward and back just a little bit. I want to set them all the way forward towards the muzzle, because when you go to shoot, the inertia will force everything forward. So what I'm doing now is I'm just checking where I would like my scope. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing the scope forward to where my scope ring will line up right here on this crease of the scope. So that looks pretty good. I'm just going to take the scope back off. Make sure that my scope ring mount are pushed forward. And then I am going to tighten these up to 20 inch-pounds. Now what I like to do is I'll come back and actually look through the scope to make sure I got a good eye relief for it. So now that we have that in place, what I like to do is I like to level the firearm up, and I'll show you how to do that. So I've got the firearm leveled, and now I'm ready to insert the scope into the scope rings. And what I've done is I put a level up on towards the muzzle, and then I have a level on top of the elevation screw on the scope. So I'm a little out of square right now, or not leveled. So I will just gently turn the scope until I get it leveled. And you want to be very careful that way you're not knocking the whole firearm out of level. So I need to turn it to the right just a hair. And I'll come back and I'll check both bubbles in my level, and that looks really good. So now I'm just ready to add the rest of the scope rings on. So I will be as delicate as possible. That way I don't knock my scope or the firearm out of level. So I'm just twisting the screws just enough to get them started. So all the while I'm keeping an eye on the bubbles on my level as well, because I don't want to throw everything off. And if you notice, I'm kind of going in a pattern, unscrewing the scope screws down. Once I start feeling some resistance, then I'll move over to my torque tool. And I'm going to drop it down to about 18 pounds of inch-pounds on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in a pattern, turning them a little bit. Move on to the next. And I will keep doing this until I start feeling some resistance. Now I'm only turning about 1/8 of a turn, and then I'm moving on to the next screw. Take my levels off, put the cap back on the scope, and now it's time to take to the range and to zero the scope in. Hope you all enjoyed this video.